All right. So, welcome today to the Blind Ambition podcast with Jack Kelly. Our very special guest is Mark McCaffrey, a fellow New Yorker who loves, Italian food, just like all New Yorkers here. But all right, we're not talking about that. We're talking about business. So I want to share with Mark because he had a very interesting career arc. And I thought it'd be great if you could share a little bit about how you started, what made you go to Pace University for accounting, and then becoming was it an auditor first, and then keep growing with PwC and so forth. So maybe you could share how you began this journey.
Yeah, and Jack, it's been a great journey, and I'm really proud, and I've learned a ton along the route, and happy to share it. I'll start, with the
Yeah.
beginning. When I went to Pace University, I wanted to stay somewhat close to home, but I wanted to be far enough away that I didn't feel like I was seeing my parents every weekend. My parents were huge supporters, but I didn't go in thinking I was going to be an accountant.
Mhm.
My dad had been a management major. Had gotten his master's in it, and was working at New York Life at the time. And I started to head down that direction. But what the more I got involved with accounting, it worked. Like the math, I always say. It's a quote I use today, is the mathing. And there's a little bit of that goes back to my early college days, that for me, accounting, the math. It was kind of the fundamentals of business. It was learning how to measure, how to hold accountability, how to really understand the inner workings of any operation, what is successful, what is not successful. And so I embarked on my career. And I started it out in New York City. I ended up in the early days of Price Waterhouse, and I ironically was a pharmaceutical person by nature, and then probably the first big move I got offered was to transfer out to the West Coast and
Mhm.
to San Jose, Silicon Valley. I had never been west of the Mississippi in my life at that point. As a fellow New Yorker,
Mhm.
I will tease ourselves a little bit. There is New York, and then there's the rest of the world, and that's how we split up the map, right? And a little bit of that was very daunting for me, but I decided to go out and visit, and with Bryce Waterhouse, and I got to Silicon Valley, and I said, it's 1995. Wow, you had this feeling of, hey, this is where things are going to start to happen. It was somewhat of a semiconductor industry vibe back then, but there was this thing called software, and everybody was starting to talk about it. No one quite knew where it was going to go. And as a young professional at the time, it called to me, and I did meet an individual at the time. I'll call him out on this. His name is Chuck Robel, who talked me into basically relocating on a whim out to Silicon Valley to work with him in the software industry. And I will bring it back to Chuck later on in the journey, but that was an important, I would say, first mentoring moment for me, was somebody who was willing to, kind of entice me to come along. And I learned probably my first lesson professionally at that. It's okay to be uncomfortable. I was totally uncomfortable moving my family, moving my kids out there, not having any support system, setting up a professional career, and it worked out great. The Silicon Valley took off. By 2000, the IPO market was unbelievable. I was working multiple IPOs at the time for Price Waterhouse, now Price Waterhouse Coopers, and I just got such a training in the underlying of business, how it worked, how dynamic it could be. It was just cutting edge. Now, fortunately, I had to live through 2021. Wasn't the greatest economic year by any means, especially for technology, but it also taught me that these things will ebb and flow, and you have to look at the peaks as well as the
Mhm.
valleys, and understand what the dynamics are moving forward. I started to continue my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers at that point. Now, as you mentioned, I started out as an accountant and an auditor. But as time went on, I started to go into leadership positions. I started to consult more, and probably the second big moment in my career was when I started to work with a company called Adobe, and that really redefined me into what I would call a better business person, where I was really looking at the fundamental workings of a company and how to strategize around what was best for the company. I worked very closely with the executive team over there, and that became something of I just felt passionate about. It was also the point that I realized that while I loved what I was doing around PricewaterhouseCoopers, that I wasn't going to end my career at PricewaterhouseCoopers. That I did want to move on at some point and at
Hmm.
some level to something else, whether it was going to be a CFO, a COO role, or undetermined. But I made that determination. I had a great run. I ended up leading TMT for PricewaterhouseCoopers. Worked with a great leadership team over there. Grew TMT to be the biggest sector at
Now,
PricewaterhouseCoopers.
what is TMT?
Technology, entertainment, media, and
Oh, okay.
community.
Hey,
So,
can I interject something just
absolutely.
because one of the things that caught my attention is this, and I'm curious about your take on it. You know, you said it almost casually that, hey, picked up your kids and moved across the country. And I have two kids myself, and I just actually moved my daughter out to LA not too long ago. And that's rough to do. Is part of trying to grow your career, whether for you or for other people, do you have to have a little bit of that adventure, a little bit of taking that risk? Because it's easy to be complacent, say, hey, we have two young kids. I don't want to pull them out of school. Let me just stay where I am. Well, similarly, when you're working with PwC and you were doing pharmaceuticals, you might have said, hey, I'll just stick around doing that, but not take the chance to go into software, which was still kind of just embryonic that. So do you think for like the audience, for people who are just on the fence and not sure what to take that risk, lead that journey, that hero's journey, so to speak, and just
Jack, it's a great point to double click on, and I can't stress enough. Especially when you're beginning your career,
Mhm.
you take risks. It's my reference to being uncomfortable.
Yeah,
When you start feeling comfortable where you are, start to evaluate whether you're moving in the right direction. If we don't create our uncomfortable, uneasy process here, take
yeah.
risk, go into something new, then you start to wonder, and this is where I was at, is it the environment that is making me who I am, or can I survive in different environments? And when you switch your environment and you're ultimately successful in that new environment, you change your surroundings entirely. Boy, you feel really
It's
uncomfortable.
like you're testing yourself, right? It's like
Testing
you're testing
yourself.
your limits and how much you can push it, it sounds like.
But what you learn from that is just unbelievable, and you can start to apply that going forward into anything you look
Mhm.
at. I know I can enter into an environment. And yes, I may make my mistakes. I may have my errors. That's okay. We all go through that. What I say is you can't say you're perfect. Everybody has vulnerabilities and we learn from them. I have my vulnerabilities, but being able to embrace the discomfort that goes with changing is a huge part of developing a career in the long term. And I always say, you know, in the three things I always focus on for people, especially younger professionals coming up now, who I love to talk to and love to coach. Um, it's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to move in that direction. It's okay to take that risk. The second point, which a little bit of me moving into GoDaddy, is you control your narrative. Remember that, right? Everybody around you will tell you what they think is best for you. I always say they are always going to tell you that with their own internal bias. You have to control your narrative. Me
Now,
coming to,
what do you mean by that? When you say control your narrative, meaning
in
just
other
like
words,
own?
own your story,
Mhm.
own where you want to go. I could have very well retired at PricewaterhouseCoopers and had a great career. That would have been a great narrative. PricewaterhouseCoopers probably would have loved that narrative. When I decided to go to GoDaddy, I basically looked at my wife and say, "I'm changing my story. This is on me." You know,
How'd she react? Was she okay
she
with that? Or?
she knew at some point I was going to do this to her.
Mhm.
What the shock to her was, I had met at that time that night when I had made a decision early, and I had met Aman Bhutani that night, and we did a video. It was in the middle of COVID. He was looking for a CFO. It was the first person I had talked to about leaving, potentially leaving PricewaterhouseCoopers for a role. And I got off the video and I turned to my wife and I said, I'm going to go work for him. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said,
Wait, for people who don't know, including myself, so that's the CEO of
CEO.
GoDaddy. Okay,
Yeah,
so you had
CEO.
so you're with the CEO on a call during COVID, and I imagine he was very charismatic, and and you were like, you know what, I'm going to do
I,
this.
I'm going to do this. I felt a connection with him, with the
Mhm.
mission. To me, it was very important to have that emotional bond that you can say, I can work with someone to build something. And I had told my wife, if I found that person and if I found that CEO, that I was not going to hesitate. It was that time that I needed to move on and control my narrative. And uh, I think she understood it in the back of her head, but didn't expect it to happen so fast.
Well, how
And
fast did that happen from your time of just getting on the call to seeing him to, signing up? Was this really a
it was
day, a week, a month?
about a month when it was about a month. And I would say the meeting happened early on, and then I met with the board members afterwards, and we all got to the same place that we wanted to do this. And I will say it brings it back a little bit. The story, the chairman of the board of the company was a gentleman by the name of Chuck Robel. So he was also the person that had also convinced me to come out to Silicon Valley in the first place. So, again, an importance of relationships and making sure you have a network and making sure that you know who those networks are. It was great to have Chuck in there as the chairman of the board, who already knew me, introducing me to Aman Bhutani, the CEO, saying, "Hey, you two should really get to know each other." We did that in one night, and we were off to the races at that point in time. And listen, I left PwC on very good terms.
Hmm.
I did not shock them. I did not show up one day. I told them my plan up front. I told them that I was going to be doing this. So it wasn't, hey, I just turned around and abruptly left them hanging. I had a whole transition plan in place that I allowed them. Again, I was controlling my narrative with them as well, saying, I'm not ending my career with PwC. I am going to go on to do something else. They were very supportive of the move. They knew it was coming.
Now,
Um,
Mark, so you have like this, Chuck as kind of a mentor or sponsor, or whatever you want to call it. Is that something that you would recommend for people, let's say in the audience, because I think especially younger people, you hear networking and they feel in the Gen Z vernacular, the ick, about networking, going to somewhere and shaking a sweaty hand and having a like
Having a
on
name
your
tag
jacket.
down, your
Yeah.
name jacket,
But I
you know,
hear this from so many guests. They'll attribute a lot of their success to having mentors, coaches, sponsors who look after them. But it doesn't happen haphazardly. They kind of actively seek it out. Is that something you did? And this is something you would advise to people to do themselves?
100%.
Yeah.
I have been blessed with multiple mentors in my life. And I would even go to far as to say, you shouldn't be thinking about mentors as a sole role for your entire life. Mentors will come into your life. It's an emotional relationship, not a logical relationship. So a mentor is a two-way relationship. A mentor has to choose that
Mhm.
they want to do this with you, and you have to emotionally, receive the fact that they are going to give you that type of advice through life, and you feel comfortable at every level. So it's a very personal relationship. It is much different than networking. Networking is, yes, relationship building. You need
Mhm.
to get to know people. You need to understand, the circle around you, absolutely important, but a mentorship is a very dynamic emotional relationship. And as your career progresses, you will find yourself potentially needing different mentors depending on where you are and what point you are in your life. I would say I had four mentors in my life, all of which were remarkably
Mhm.
great. all of them I still have a relationship with at some level, but each one has had a different contribution to my life based on where I was. And again, it is something, if you're coming up in your career, not only do you have to look for that, you have to be comfortable with that. Because that dynamic is, you're going to tell things, you know, personally to somebody.
Mhm.
You're gonna share your vulnerabilities with them. They're gonna see where your strengths and your weaknesses are. Why? Because to really get that full, mentorship, you have to be able to get the full extent of it. It's different than an executive coach. I think executive coaching is a great thing, by the way. I've had my
Mhm.
executive coach for over a decade. But the mentorship is somebody that's been there, done that, has experienced it. Their history allows you to get tidbits of information. Doesn't mean you take the same path, doesn't mean you focus on the same thing all the time, but you take data points from them that help you put together your narrative, what you want to do, what you enjoy doing, and how do you want to approach things. And they act as a sounding board in the insanity of when you're looking at complex things or things are moving around, you can go to a safe place to say, hey, I'm thinking about this way. Am I crazy?
Mhm.
Like, is this am I missing something in how I'm approaching this? And that dynamic is just a very special dynamic. So mentorship's extraordinarily important in one's career. Feeling passionate about what you're doing. That's probably the last element. A
Mhm.
little bit of the GoDaddy story was, I had been somebody who had worked with a lot of big corporations. I had worked with Adobe's and Salesforces of the world, and coming to a company that focused on entrepreneurs and micro businesses, underdogs, it just created this fire, right? Of, oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever. We're empowering entrepreneurs to start businesses and realize their dreams. And if you wake up every morning with a passion, you're getting it, thinking about, okay, how am I going to fix them
Mhm.
today? That's a great place to be in your career, and you put that all together, and that's what great careers are made of at the end of the day. Is what I put them all together. Mentorship's important, but hey, don't be afraid to be uncomfortable. Really control your narrative, and find something you're passionate about. One of my mentors used to say to me, who's getting out of bed every morning worrying about this problem? And it really struck me as that's the angle to the passion. Like, who gets out of bed every morning thinking, what do I want to solve for entrepreneurs today? How do I want to approach that? How do I make their lives easy? And that's a little bit of the connection I had with Amon early on was, hey, there's a passion here. There is really a drive here that we want to make our customers better, and to do that we have to be better, and that means we have to
Yeah.
approach our customers in a more systematic way. We have to really understand what jobs they need to do, and we have to get in there. One of the things I love today in my job is going out and meeting entrepreneurs.
Mhm. Well,
Right?
Mark, can I ask you this? In terms of, with GoDaddy, I think people are familiar with the name, that they may not know, they may know a little, they may not know a lot. And then with AI, I'd imagine it's a big game changer, not only for across the board, but in particular with GoDaddy. So maybe you could share, if you'd like, a little bit what GoDaddy is about, what they're doing, and how they're helping empower small businesses and entrepreneurs to become one day, hopefully, big entrepreneurs and big businesses, if they're
Yes,
so inclined.
we want them to be as
Yeah.
successful as their dreams want them to be.
Mhm.
And we started off with a very simple concept years ago: domains. We wanted to bring people to the internet, and to do that, domains was the easiest way, and that created our brand, our name. But now, we are a one-stop shop for an entrepreneur who wants to start a business. And they come to us for the domain. They can get that professional email. They can create a website. We have commerce capabilities now that they can transact almost immediately. You can have a full business up and running with LLC formation within minutes. using our new technology experience called Arrow, and it's spelled AIRO. And that arrow really engages them across multiple different levels that allows them to be successful. It's a one platform that allows them to do everything they need to do to reach their customers. And what makes it so exciting is when you think about an entrepreneur and you think about maybe a mom and pop shop, you think about like I said, the underdog. They may be in a corner store right now, transacting in their neighborhood, but they want to reach people now across town or in the next town over.
Mhm.
So they want some kind of website that allows people to place orders. Sometimes they're doing this out of their garage, and this is a side hustle, right? I had a great story. I was visiting an entrepreneur. She has a great business. She just opened her first storefront. I think now she's on her second storefront. She had moved out of her backyard doing this, and we were talking about all the functionality. We were just making sure she was enjoying what she was seeing. The experience was great. Her husband pulls me aside and says, "Hey, I have a business too." And I'm like, "Oh, great. What are you doing?" He's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, I'm a personal trainer, and I have created a website with you also, and I do this on weekends, and I have a whole crew." And he starts explaining to me what he does, and I laughed because it was almost he didn't want his wife to know what he was doing. But the two of them were entrepreneurs, and to them, creating that business was the most important thing in their lives. Their kids were involved in each of the businesses, right? To me, that just personified exactly who we're trying to help, right? They were shipping throughout the U.S. now, and they were in a small store here in California, and they wouldn't have access to those type of customers unless they had created that online presence and had the ability to transact. So that's the passion that when you really sit down and meet people who are just doing the stuff they love and want to grow at it is just tremendous.
Did you notice, are there any particular companies or types of companies that gravitate towards GoDaddy and are successful?
I so I would say across the board.
Hmm.
Uh, we seem to attract a lot of services business. So think about the local plumber or the local electrician. We do have, I would say, a little bit of a leaning that way. But having said that, it seems it's everywhere. Why? Because when they come into our funnel, they start thinking about their dream and they start ideating on it. It's just a great place to start. And that ideation doesn't seem to be specific to an industry. It just seems to be more a characteristic of an individual coming in wanting to do something. And that's what we love, right? And that's why we keep our platform very, I would say, meeting many needs and making sure we can accommodate everything because speed to
Hmm.
market is probably the best thing. And I would be remiss if I didn't point out that part of this works because of our great care organization on the back end that helps people. So, if you need help and you're an entrepreneur or, you and your partner are doing a small business, yeah, you want someone to guide you through the IT stack and help you make sure everything's working appropriately. And you want help. You don't want to be on a service call for 2 hours trying to figure out why something is working. You want somebody who's going to jump in and just take care of it for you. So we have a great care organization as well.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but just for example, so let's say
Jack,
we
put
talked
me on.
about,
You have permission to put me
so,
on.
all right, so let's say we talk about mentorship. So let's say someone wants to set up a mentorship platform and using GoDaddy. So I imagine with AI, you could search for a name, and I know names are so hard to find nowadays, right? Like normal names, because like all of like the normal ones are taken, so you have to have kind of somewhat, you know,
Yeah.
quirky kind of name. So you can get a name. Then do you get like how would it work? So then what do they do now? So okay, I have the name, Jack Kelly, career coach or mentorship. So you have the name, you get or maybe you can't get the full name, but you get a variation of it.
That's
Then what else could Arrow do to kind of just make it super easy to start building everything around it?
Yeah, Jack, that a great question, right? So Arrow, we call it a magical
Mm-hmm.
experience. So you come in with an idea, you might not even know what domain name you want, but Arrow will help you by one, if you come in with hey, what do I want a name to be?
Mhm.
It'll give you, hey, here are 10 names that may be appropriate for what you're trying to do. In the past, you used to have to type in every name and see if it was available. And then, if you got your fifth name, you're probably getting a little frustrated. But now it'll present the options. So discovery is now in an AI tool that allows options to be presented to somebody coming in. So as soon as you establish, okay, this is the good domain name I want, it automatically says, all right, based on your domain name you picked, here are options for professional emails. And you should think about using one. Why? Well, if you get an email from somebody who has, I would say a generic email at the end, you're going to question whether it's a real
Mhm.
or not. These are real professional emails that help make you seem legitimate to your customers because you need to be able to enact and have confidence with who you're engaging with. And then Arrow will say, okay, you want to do a bike shop. You know what? Here are 8 versions of a website based on bike shops in your locations. Do you want to use any of these? Again, you used to have to be able to come up with your own creative content to make a website. Now it starts to present it to you. And you can go through the options. And then it gives you an option to say, okay, do you want to create this under an LLC? Yes, I do. Okay, I click on that button. Now I can go set up my LLC immediately. Now all of a sudden, I have a domain name, I have email address, I have a website. I have an LLC under this. I'm about 5 minutes into my journey. And do you want to transact? We have a commerce platform. You can start taking transactions. And so, you start to be able to now say, okay, now I not only is my idea real, but I'm in market with it, and I could present that through the website where I
Do
can.
you know, do you have to get a third party or you could do it just right on the site?
We do our own. We built our own commerce, what we call pipes ourselves. So
Mhm.
we pay back, and we're able to process the transaction with them
So
directly.
so someone doesn't have to worry for the bike, the bike store situation. Now go to some other, like go to some bank and have to go
No.
through all that rigmarole. You could just do it right on the platform and not even have to leave it.
Yeah, that's right. And not only, when you think about that, from a small business, from an entrepreneur,
Mhm.
everything from the domain to the commerce transaction is connected. And it's in one platform. You have all the data information you need to run your business. Oh, and by the way, if something doesn't work, you have one care organization to call to guide you through what's not working.
And when you say care, is that like a human being that you get, or is it an AI or whatever you want, whatever you feel
whatever you
more
want.
comfortable with? Mhm.
So that's the great part about it. Not every
Yeah.
problem we solve in one way. A lot of people want to talk to a human. The human element is very important. We have that. Sometimes you just want to change your password or you forgot it. Okay, you don't necessarily need to talk to a human to do that. You can do that through an electronic. Sometimes you're good with the bot can answer your question quickly and you can move on. Generationally, everybody has a different preference these days as to what they want to do, but we give that option that you can do any of them to solve your problem. And I'll give you the example. Let's say you were on different applications, you had a different
Mhm.
commerce platform, you have a different website, you use somebody for your domain name, nothing's working. You call up your payment platform, they say, hey, that's great, but that's not us, it's your website's problem. You call up the customer care for your website and they say, yeah, that's really great, but that's not us, it's your payment platform.
Mm.
Now you're
So you
going
have it
back.
all like in this your own universe. You don't have to go outside of it.
And for the
Mm.
underdog, the person who just wants to be selling out there, they just want to call up and get the help, right? They're
Mm.
not looking for the blame. They're just
But
looking for,
yeah,
hey,
and speaking of selling, so then do you have the ability, do you have like AI and other things to then like make marketing slicks or advertising or
yeah,
graphics or
oh,
just to kind of put it on social media so people know that, hey, Mark's bicycle shop, and they'll have, is
yeah.
that what you could do that too?
We will
Mhm.
help with the marketing. We will set up campaigns. The AI engine will come up with social media posts for you. What I love is, when you think again about, couple entrepreneurs or somebody who's mom and pop shop, their kids are going to school during the day, you know their web presence, their social media presence becomes an important part of what they
Mhm.
do. But think about all the platforms that are now incoming with notes or emails or questions about your products. you know, you're going to spend your entire night trying to, answer them, respond to them, come up with solutions for them based on whatever you do. The AI engine now does it all for you. It basically takes down all things, comes up with responses for you, and puts it out there into the social platforms again to allow you to engage at a faster level. What we're finding too with Arrow is unbelievable. The AI driven social responses get better click throughs from their customers than the ones they were doing themselves. Well, when you think about it, it was probably because they were doing it 1 in the morning because they're
Hmm.
doing a full-time job all day. Doing social media responses at the end of the day is probably not something you want to spend a ton of energy on, but yet is critically important for your ability to grow the business. So the platform aids in all that, right? And it can look across all the platforms and consolidates it and then just drafts a response. Now the entrepreneur can sit down and turn around, change that response if they want, or they can just say, "Yep, this is great, send it." It can look at holidays and say, "Hey, we see the holidays are coming up. That's a big sales time for you. Let's create an entire campaign around that holiday, and then you can pick the dates that those campaigns go out broadly across platforms, across emails in your database. All that is simple to use, easy to use, and allows people to be effective in the market. And that's why AI for us is a tool that empowers entrepreneurs. It is something, they're not saying, "Oh my God, this AI, oh, this is the greatest AI tool I ever." For our customer base, they're just saying, "Wow, this is just making my life easier. It works. It takes away from a lot of the stuff I had to spend time doing and makes me focus on a lot of the stuff I need to do to make myself successful versus some of the stuff on the back end, which it was hard, right? It can do research for you. It can, and Jack, I'd be remiss if I didn't say
Hmm.
part of this works for us because we have 21 million customers. We have 14 million interactions with our customer base every year through our care organization. We get 1.2 billion signals from our customers every day. We have a ton of data within our platform that allows us to turn that around and be valuable back to our customers. When others are talking about AI, a lot of times they're using the LLM aspect of this.
Hmm.
We use our layer of technology first in our data. So it really allows us to be quicker in our response, more effective in our response, and allows them to get to those insights a lot quicker. If you ask our Arrow, "Hey, who's selling coffee for $9 within a mile radius?" It comes back and can give you those type of insights that allows you to do pricing. You might have to hire a person to do that
Hmm.
in I'll say in the pre-world, AI world. Now you can use that engine to take on those tasks that allow you to really get that benefit going on. So again, I feel like this is, the tool for the underdog because it allows them to start to even the playing field and to be more effective in how they approach their customers.
Now, is it fair to say maybe that given what's happening for the last couple of years with high inflation, high costs, the dollar not as strong, are there more people who are signing up figuring, hey, you know what? Let me try something entrepreneurial. Let me try this side hustle. Are you seeing more and more customers, new customers coming aboard because they feel like, you know what? The groceries expensive and this, like, let me try to do something else to make some more money. Is
Yeah,
that happening?
many factors
Yeah.
I would say in the macro environment always
Yeah.
affect what is going around me. We monitor them all because they all have slight variations to what might happen within our funnel, so to speak. What we're seeing today is customers coming in with higher intent. And I always say higher intent means we're seeing more customers that are coming in with they want to do something. They want to
Hmm.
engage with some kind of business. They want to transact. They want to publish. Those are the type of customers we want within our funnel versus somebody who, is just looking for the cheapest domain name ever,
Hmm.
who's not coming in with real intent to do anything with that domain name. We want the customer who's going to go online and be that entrepreneur. And that's the strength we see in the funnel today. Now, there are many factors that drive that. no doubt about it. We can look at almost every geographic region and see different aspects of how that all works. But there is no doubt that our entrepreneurs are a very optimistic group. They feel really, really in what they can do out there. They, despite the macro environment that may be going
Mm.
around them, they think that they're prospects to do what they love. It comes back to that passion comment I made earlier. They're passionate about what they're doing, so they're coming in with, how can I do more? How can I be better? How can I get more customers? And that's the dream that we love to fuel.
That's great. You must love the fact that when you see some of these small, embryonic companies start doing well, and then you notice them online, you're like, oh, this is great. I'm glad to see this
Well,
happening.
that is what it comes back to. Going out and visiting the customers
Yeah.
is just so much fun, because you're talking about people that are realizing their dreams and you're being a part of it, and get to talk to them, to even hear how it's working, what do they want for their next step, right? And it's like I said, so much passion, so much love. And here at GoDaddy, we are very customer focused. It is all about the customer. Everything we do starts with, okay, how are we going to help our customers? And it, from our mission statement, it's just unbelievable to see a culture that revolves around, here, how are we going to make that person's life a little bit easier?
Mhm.
How are we going to help them do the jobs they need to do a little bit better, so that they can get more value? Hey, and in turn, we get a little more value too.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, let me be remiss if I didn't ask. As a CFO, I think for a lot of people, you hear CFO, different C-suites. So for yourself, like, if you don't mind, like, what do you do? Like, what are the core things as a CFO? And if somebody wants to be a CFO, is there a career path for that? Would you recommend a career path and go in that direction?
Yeah, no specific
Yeah.
recommendation, except that it's a great gig. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it as a path, uh,
Hmm.
especially if you're financial oriented. But what I love about it is you're in the thick of things. You're in the front. You're working with the CEO and the COO. Solving complex problems. You're bringing that financial element to it. You have great interactions with the board of directors. It's as I said the other day in a meeting, I am never bored in my role, because
Hmm.
there's always something to push to do to make things a little bit better. We live in a very regulated world, no doubt about it. That is a part of what we do. But at the same time, when you get, to a point where you can really see the benefits of, in our case in GoDaddy, we went through a transformation a couple of years ago when I joined on, about, hey, we're going to consolidate our technology stack. We're going to create Arrow. When you're a part of that process and you're a part of that transformation and you're laying out the path, you're talking to investors about the path and
Hmm.
you're seeing how the investors are embracing it. That it's a great place. I highly recommend it. Now, there are different paths to get here, no doubt about it. You have some who come up, I would say, the finance end of the world. Great path to be, brings a lot of elements to it. I came up through the consulting slash accounting end of it and came on over. I would say the commonality between the two that you have to make sure you do is understand leadership, understand how to solve complex problems. You get that from multiple different directions, but you have to be somebody who is able and capable of processing that, understanding it, being able to communicate around it, develop strong teams around you. Those things don't change no matter what path you come up. And my famous line around here is, I have plenty of people who bring me problems every day. I value the ones that
Yeah.
bring solutions. You want the people who, you want to be one of those people who are bringing solutions. You want to be people who are thinking about the next step, are not thinking about what is, and not how to get better, but how to push the edge to get to that next level, seeing what it needs to be about a year out versus what's right in front of you. You also have to be the person who also understands the difference between, what I call near proximity threats, what's imminent, collision, that you have to focus with, which is versus problems that may require a little bit of time. and not every threat is always going to be the same. You have to be able to evaluate that very, very clearly. The other thing you have to be really good at is ruthless prioritization. Something we do very good here at GoDaddy, because we all agree with it from an executive level. But being able to prioritize, there's plenty of good things to do out there. There's plenty of great things to do out there, but unless you prioritize to what is important, and have that ability to prioritize that and stay on task, then you're really never going to get to the end results or outcomes that you're trying to drive. I, as a team and a leadership style, is very much we focus on outcomes. Like, what are you driving for the outcome that match where we want to go? If you're not driving to that outcome, then you should question why we're doing what we're doing.
Right. Now, hopefully your boss is not listening, but what's the next step? Do you know do you have an idea where you want to go next? Is you just what's for GoDaddy itself or yourself? Any interesting plans?
I love what I'm doing right now. I'm never going to say never, but boy, I love this executive team. I love working with them. I love the contribution. I love our focus on the customers. I have a unbelievably great board of directors who are supportive of our mission, that engage and continue to challenge us. So I will leave that with hey, this is a great place to be, in a great market and a great environment, and I can't wait to see the next part of this journey. I've been here in my 4th year now, and I feel like we've gotten this to a point that we have the world in front of us as a company to continue to grow, continue to expand, continue to push the financial end of the metrics we talk about publicly, and deliver on those long-term results that I love to talk about every quarter on earnings.
This is great. I really appreciate you taking the time out, because like there's so many themes that you brought up that I think are so helpful. Everything from taking risks to seeking out mentors and sponsors and coaches, to take control of the narrative, take control of your life, really.
Yeah.
And it's easy to say and it's hard to do. So I think, but the more time people hear it, eventually kind of, they may hear it from you, they hear it from me, they hear from others, but eventually it kind of kicks in. They realize, all right, I got to do this.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about this idea. I keep talking about it, but I'm not acting on it. I'm going to go to
Oh,
GoDaddy. I'm going to set up this thing. I'm going to build it
right.
out. And I imagine I imagine the way the economy is still going, this is going to keep getting bigger because more people are looking for these side, as they say, they call it side hustles or whatever you want to call it, or that might be their main thing. And so
Yeah.
I could see it just keep growing, right?
Yeah, it's a great market, and it's something that continues to be not only important for I would say GoDaddy, obviously the market we serve and we focus on, but the world and the entrepreneurs and the micro businesses. It drives so much within our world, and promoting that in and of itself. Whether you're looking in the United States or even within other global regions, it's an important factor of what we do, and being part of that is just, it makes me smile every day. It comes back to that last point. It makes you feel passionate about something because you're driving towards something.
Well, that's great. Let's end on it because that's a good note. It's, a lot of people are not happy with their jobs, and so it's good to speak to somebody who's really passionate about what they're doing, excited about what they're doing, looking forward to getting up in the morning, because that's the key thing, right? If you can't get out of bed in the morning feeling, jazzed about like what I'm going to do, and you just want to just hit the snooze button, that's just miserable, right?
That
It's
you,
just
you
horrible.
don't want to be there.
Yeah.
You want to be, there's a lot. Everybody perceives value in a different way, and I about that. Being passionate about something, is very, very important to feeling what you as a person are endeavoring to be the best you can be. So I leave
Excellent.
with that, and I'll come back to the 3 points. Don't be afraid to be uncomfortable, control your narrative, and find what you're passionate about.
Brilliant. I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. It was a great conversation. And I love, you sharing your career arc. I love what's going on with GoDaddy. And I think for a lot of people, this is great, because they're going to get some ideas and thoughts, and maybe, who knows, how cool would it be for this podcast that someone listens to it and they're the next, Meta or the next Amazon, what have you. So we'll hope for that to happen. That'd be awesome. Then we could come back for another podcast to talk
I
about
would
these
love
big
that.
victories. Or
I
actually, we could even do that too. Like if there's some like huge victories, that might be a good, update on it. Like, hey, how we talked about,
yeah,
things.
I love
Look at
it. I
this
love it.
company. Look what they're doing now. That could
I
be fun too.
I love that. I
Okay.
love that. Let's work with that.
Awesome. Excellent. Thank you so much, Mark.
All right. Thanks,
So,
Jack.
thanks.